coming to you from the Edge Podcast Studios at South Mountain, Phoenix, Arizona. Welcome to the Edge Podcast with Mike G. Buckle up, Edge Nation. It's about to get real.
Welcome to the Edge Podcast. This is Mike G, and we are coming to you from South Mountain, and the studio is called the Edge Podcast, and I have in studio today, oh my God, like a legend in the world of Tantra. She's beautiful, she's sexy, she's smart. Hi, Laurie.
Hi, Michael.
How are you, baby?
I'm good.
You look very happy.
I am happy. I love being called a legend.
You are. You are.
I guess.
I mean, you've changed, I think, in a lot of ways. The sexual, like you're the sexual revolutionaries, something like that.
I'm a general in the sexual revolution for sure. I have stripes and everything to prove it. Yeah.
That's awesome. So we are going to find out all about what it is that you do and kind of the life that you've created for yourself in the world of sex and happiness.
Thank you.
I'm happy to have you here. I'm really excited. It's juicy already.
Me too.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Awesome. So let's get started. So tell us a little bit about how you came to be in this world called Tantra.
Well, I was working at a place called Landmark Education, which I think you know something about.
I do.
And probably some of your listeners know something about.
Absolutely.
And when I left Landmark Education, I was kind of broken. Like my body was broken down. What I was valued for was what I produced, right. But I wasn't valued in my body very much.
Tell me about how you were broken down. What was?
Oh my goodness! I didn't want to get too into it because I still love Landmark Education, but I
mean it's important.
I could cast a shadow. I was having lower GI problems, and I had what's called IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, because there was so much pressure to produce. I was really the top enrollment manager in the world, which means I enrolled lots of people into the forum.
Sure, yeah,
and
that's a big deal.
It's a big deal. It's transformation, and it wasn't the beginning of my transformation, but it was. At the time, I thought it was the highest purpose I could possibly fulfill. So I loved what I was doing, and I succumbed to the pressure, meaning I had to keep producing. Yeah. And so I developed this condition. It wasn't diagnosed, or actually it was, but the doctor didn't write it down. He said, I don't want to have something follow you, but you're like a mess down there.
Wow. And
so I would do I couldn't digest well, and I had blood coming out, and I used to have to there's a process where when you're leading an introduction where I could put two people into a dyad, two people answer questions with each other, and I would call up the person who was called my room captain, or the back of the room, and I would say, I'm putting them into a dyad and I'm running to the bathroom. And I had a forum leader who was my doctor, and he said, you can't keep living on sulfur drugs. Like, you have to stop this. Like, you're succumbing to the pressure. And I didn't listen. And then I was playing tennis one Sunday. That was my only day off. And I was playing doubles tennis, and I didn't hear anything rip, but I tore my meniscus in my left knee. And so now I'm limping around. I'm bleeding out my butt. And I'm just like, I'm not happy. So I went to a naturopath, my first experience ever with a naturopath, and he said to me, what do you love to do? I said, I love to dance. And he said, okay, what else? He asked me some conditions about what was happening, the conditions of my life at the time, the circumstances of my life, what I had created. And I said, well, I have a lot of pressure on the job, and this relationship, which was sitting there with me, sucks, and this is happening. That, and he said, okay, here's my prescription. Quit your job and dance more. And I went, what?
Wow.
And he said, just quit your job and dance more, and change your diet a bit, and I'll show you how to do that. So I did. About 2 weeks later, when I was listening to Marianne Williamson, and I was in the dumps, and I was praying, like, what am I going to do now?
You left your job.
I just did, and I had no idea what I was going to.
Yeah.
Someone calls me and says there's going to be a Tantra class in Silver Spring, Maryland. I lived in D.C.
Okay.
There's going to be a Tantra class. I think you should go. You're a mess. And I've never been such a mess in my life.
When your friends are like coming to you, you're the number one, right, enrollment registration person in the world for Landmark, and now your friend's calling you a mess.
I felt a mess.
Right.
I felt a mess. And I said, this is a person I never listened to. I went, okay, I'll go. I didn't even know what it was about. Now, rolling back about 10 years before, in the 80s, I read an article about Tantra, but there was no internet. So I didn't know how to find Margot Anand. I read an article about her, and I said, this is what I know intuitively. Sex is more than sex. Mm-hmm. It's so deep. It connects people to the universe, to the cosmos, to whatever, but how can I access this? I don't know where this woman is. So here I was, 1996, and this woman says, you should go to this class. And I go, okay. So I went to the class, and the first day I cracked open. I mean, I just cracked open. In Landmark, I had to be in my masculine aspect all the time because I had to like command people and demand results from them. And I had to hold them to account, and I had to do all these things. Here I was in this class, and all of a sudden my whole feminine opened up, and I was crying, and my hair felt like it was growing, and my breasts felt swelled. I mean, everything changed in one day, and the class was 3 days. So I said, I remember who I am as a female. I remember who I am connected to everything that is today. I declare this is my life. So I kept taking classes, and then I went into a teacher training program with my teacher at the time over the next couple of years. And when I left Landmark, actually I started doing government consulting. Mm-hmm. So I had been a contractor for industry long before.
Right.
And now I was consulting to the federal, the state, and city governments and taking people off the welfare rolls. And I was helping them get a job ethic and then be employable and have a life. Right. It was kind of like the forum, like the Landmark Forum, but a different version. And it was me taking people, the easiest to employ and the hardest to employ. Ones who had a little college, ones who just got off crack. Both
a little bit of a spread there, right?
So I was doing that, and I was doing well. I had 15 employees, and I got awards from Al Gore for the best practices in welfare to work. That's the first time I came to Phoenix for an award.
Wow.
Things happened.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, the Clinton administration wasn't in office anymore. And George W. Bush got elected. And when he got elected, he took all those programs and he made them faith-based.
Oh,
so he gave them to churches, which I didn't have a church.
Yeah.
I wasn't gonna either.
Yeah. You didn't start your own religion or something.
No. I'm not into it. So I didn't have a church, and I lost all that money and all those contracts. I had to let go of my employees. I had to let go of everybody. And I thought
George W. Bush.
Yeah, but here's the thing.
Fucker.
Wait.
What?
I said to myself, sex always sells. Am I going to let an administration get in the way of my making money? Hell no. I'm going to teach Tantra starting from this minute on, and I'm always going to have an income no matter who's in office, no matter what happens. So I consider that George W. Bush did one really good thing. He created me as a sacred sexuality teacher.
Had you stayed doing that, you never would have done this. Is that what you're saying? Really?
Well, I was in teacher training, so I might have, but I probably would have put it off for longer. I mean, I started in 1998, 1999.
I have a really hard time saying thank you to George W.
Well, listen,
But you know what? Yeah.
In Tantra, you have to see all sides of everything. There's no right or wrong in Tantra. There's no dark or light. There's only what is. And we embrace it all. So I can embrace him. He he's an angry son of a bitch, but he did that, and that caused me to have to shift, and I did, and for the better of the world.
And that was,
2000. I forgot when he went in office exactly. It was I started teaching around 98, 99,
right.
And in 2000 I was launched.
Yeah.
I mean, I was launched at that, was that the millennium?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was launched by then. I was doing beaucoup classes, lots of levels of classes. I had people marching in the doors, especially from Landmark. People wanted to know what I was having. You know, that was like when Harry met Sally. Like, I looked so good. I was so worn out when I left staff at Landmark, and and then I started to look so good, and I always had like this angry streak. Like, I don't know why. I had all the symptoms of sexual abuse. Like, you could say I had those symptoms, but I know that didn't happen with my father, and I know it didn't happen with my uncle, and there weren't that many adult men around me. But I was angry, and I just was, and that's how I was for forever. And what happened was, in Tantra, I started to like release the anger. I started to calm down, and my friends called me. They said, "Are you on some kind of Prozac or something? Like, are you taking mood drugs because you're so calm now, and you're not calling at 3 a.m. angry at anything anymore." I was just like, Tantra changed my whole way of being, my whole personality. I mean, I got better and less, like the Italian word agita. Like, I don't have that anymore.
You're very serene to be around. Like, your energy is very clean, and you know what I mean? It's just like, but it's also juicy. I like that word, because I always feel like there's this like a wash of energy. Does that make sense? And it's tangible. You know? It's like it's like a wave of ocean that just kind of flows back and forth around you. So it's kind of cool.
Thank you. I feel better than ever. Now it's it's 2 decades. Yeah. I feel better than ever. I feel calm. Today I was upset at something, just today. And I said, okay, I'm going to do some release work. I did a little release work. And the person that I was communicating with just quickly wrote me and said, take a breath. I was going into my workout, my regular physical workout, and he said, just work it out. Do a little release after or before. Take a breath. Everything's okay. And I just was like, okay. That I know. When I think back, I was not like that.
That would have been a different story.
No,
right?
And I was able to just give to him. And then I was able, one of my apprentices called today, and I was upset at her for something. And I just was able to totally be present for her and give to her in a way that she needed. She broke down. And she released, and then I said to her, look, this isn't personal. I just need you to keep your word with the things that you say you're going to do. Yeah. And whatever. I never used to be like that. I used to be like, let's rumble. The sharks and the jets.
I'm gonna take my gloves off. Hold on.
I like
you're
gloves.
a sweetheart, though. I'll bet you do. You like the furry ones, or you like the other ones, the leather ones?
I like. I have a kink about. My personal kink is nitrile or latex gloves.
Ah, yeah. That's kind of sexy.
It is.
So we're going to talk about your kink a little bit. We're going to talk about a lot of things today.
Okay.
And I think one of the things that I'm most interested in, because I just love the story of how you became a Tantra teacher. But then you wrote books, and you've done movies, and you've done you know what I mean? You're accomplished. You've really done a lot. And so let's talk a little bit about some of the projects that you've worked on, that you've spearheaded, and that you've created in the world. And let's talk about some of your programs.
Okay.
I've been to one.
Yeah, I'm glad. You were just recently.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah. You're a graduate. You're a butterfly.
I'm a butterfly. The whole world of Tantra, ladies and gentlemen, I must tell you, is very intriguing. It is a deep, personal, spiritual journey. I feel that everybody should take, because it does something to you. So, my recommendation.
Well, let me say something. I was just on my show earlier today, I was interviewing a couple that I didn't know. And one of the things he said, which I'm just going to quote, his name is Brian Craig out of Atlanta, and his wife is Karen, and they teach Tantra there. And they're an African-American couple, which is rare in the Tantra world. So I loved them. I loved connecting with them.
Wow.
And something he said, which I'm going to pass along because it was so brilliant. He said, everyone is an expression of the divine. And so if we look at ourselves as an expression of the divine, like you're God and I'm goddess, and we honor that in each other, we can bow to that in each other, then our life takes on a whole different quality. And that's very special, and that's what Tantra brings about. That's what the honoring. There's little rituals like eye gazing or breathing together, and they're so intimate, and they allow people to really get connected to the divine in them, and then to be able to interact from that place of being. If I interact from a place that I'm divine, I actually am the goddess, and I interact with you, then I'm not going to have a typical fight with you. Do you know what I mean? I'm just not going to, I'm not going to get triggered. And even if I do get triggered from an old place, from a past, I'm going to be able to work that out very quickly and get right back into the love and accepting what is. So I don't have to change you or someone or anything. I didn't have to change the circumstances today of the things that upset me a little bit. I just said, I'm out of this. I don't want to be part of this communication. You're the organizer of this thing. You handle it. I didn't have to get all, as they say, my shorts
panties in a bunch.
Panties in a bunch. I didn't have to do that. I just had to go, I'm frustrated. I don't like how many emails I'm getting, whatever it was earlier today. I want to be out of this.
Yeah.
I want to be free. That's not my role.
Right.
So Tantra is a lot about staying in the divine, noticing when we're not, doing release work. By the way, my Tantra, I can't speak for everybody else's because some people don't do the same.
And your Tantra is, what is it called?
Butterfly workshops.
Okay. I want to make sure that.
Yeah, and I do a lot of emotional release work because I needed it. I wouldn't do anything to you that I wouldn't do to myself,
Right.
Yeah. So I needed a lot of emotional release work because I needed to release that anger and those other things, triggers that I don't even know where they came from. And I know how to do that. It's instinctive now. Like I could just do it and move on, like shift. So I seek to shift myself in every manner. So that's like one thing. I'm known in the world for being the emotional release queen,
Hashtag queen of emotional release.
I am.
I love it.
And then
the release queen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's moving in the unknown. Those are two things that I'm really known for. Something called Laurie Han.
Oh, I love
which
that.
you really like. I know.
love Laurie Han.
You took to that right away.
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
It's the unknown. Laurie Han being that and that we can move in a way that has never been done before, and it's surprising and at the same time very seductive.
Mm-hmm. And for some people, very scary.
Oh yeah.
Because most people want to. Well, when we're growing up, at least in this culture, I can't talk about every single culture, but I can't imagine that human beings are that much different. We want to know. We want to label things. Our language makes us, when we're growing up as little kids, our parents say, truck, duck, chicken, car. We want to know and label everything. And we're given to do that because that was how we were brought up. That's how we distinguished our world.
Yeah.
If you've read the book, The Four Agreements, he talks a lot about how the first time you go A, B, C, you start to buy into the culture. Like you buy into the reference of your society, whatever your society is. So Laurie Han is exactly the opposite of that. Laurie Han is praying for, moving in, doing authentic movement in an unknown space that can't be really labeled. It's just Laurie Han. It's when I learned the practice in my Tantra classes, when I learned the practice of Laurie Han, which by the way, it's not typical of Tantra either. Like I took to it like a duck to water, and I was lucky enough to meet someone who introduced me to the practice. I took that as my spiritual name. Laurie Han. Oh, yes.
Oh,
I took that as my name because, okay, here's why.
that's a great name. Come on.
Well, Laurie Handlers signifies handling things.
Yeah.
And so by the time I learned Laurie Han, I decided I don't want to handle things anymore. I just want to deal with what comes, and I don't want to have to handle it. I'd rather be in the unknown. I don't want to have a role. So I took Laurie Han on because it's close enough to my name. It's like if you said my name Asian, Laurie Han, Laurie Handlers.
Laurie
Handlers.
Handlers.
I took that name and I said, I am going to pray for not knowing, not classifying, not labeling or boxing things. I'm going to pray for whatever there is.
Yeah.
I'm going to embrace it, and I'm going to play.
Yeah.
I'm stepping up to the plate, and I'm going to play whatever it is.
It's the unexpected. I've been going through a similar, I think, transformation in my life. So, for instance, where we met, right? A dance that we were at. It was very. It was erotic. I think it was pretty close.
It was an erotic dance party.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was just a party of people dancing, and it was clothing optional, and and it was the first time I'd ever been to anything like that. So Laurie Han was in effect, and I didn't even know it. Yeah, it's my first time, and that's where we met. And we met Bruce and the other Bruce and Eric, my friends Erica and Ernesto invited me, and so there I am, and we just have a few moments together, and we talk, and I got to know you a little bit, but not much. And then it wasn't until a week or so later, maybe it was a week or two.
No, it was a week.
It was a week later. We met up at an Om turn-on in Phoenix for the Om
orgasmic meditation
community, right? Orgasmic meditation, and a practice that I'm familiar with. I just didn't know it was called Om, right? So there we are, and we meet again.
Yeah.
And that was pretty amazing.
It was awesome. It was a Laurie Han.
It was a Laurie Han. I hadn't been to anything like that before. So, and now I'm what I consider part of the community.
Yeah, and but you were brilliant.
Oh, thank you.
You know, there was an activity they have there called Hot Seat, and you went on the hot seat and you said some really powerful things about wanting to know the goddess.
Yeah.
And my whole body responded to you. I mean, like I had a visceral reaction to you. I could feel temperature changing up and down my body, and I could feel myself leaning in. I mean, you weren't even near me. You were like the other side of the room, but your speaking engaged my nervous system. And then I told you, and you were like, what?
I got to talk to this woman. There was something about you. I knew it. There was something about you. So we had a glass of wine afterwards.
Yeah.
And, what I think I said was that I believe every woman has a goddess in her, and that women are connected to the divine in a way that men aren't. And not that we don't have the access, but that we're just not connected that way, and that women need the masculine to let that out. And I want to be one of those men who learns how to do that. And
that was a total turn on at the turn on. And I don't think they meant to have that happen, but it was a total turn on for me.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was so exciting to hear you, because I know that to be true. Actually, I know the truth of that statement, not like it's the truth, but I know inside myself when I discovered Tantra, that was the connection. Like when I said before, I discovered my female aspect again.
Yeah.
At Landmark, I had to put it in my desk. I had to put it away. Well, they told me.
You had to put your pussy in the desk.
Well, listen, I have a good story about that. Oh, if any Landmartians are listening to this, they're going to hate this.
Turn it off. No, don't. Listen in.
So, no, if you get offended, I'm sorry. Too bad. But this literally happened. So when I was in the ILP program, the Introduction to the Forum Leaders program, I was at one of the weekends in New York. I was in Washington, D.C., so our weekends consisted of Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, New York, Montreal, and Boston. And Edison, New Jersey. So 6 Landmark centers met in New York City at the New York Center. This is before they moved to the World Trade Towers and all that. This was like they were on the upper 30s, 38th, East 38th Street. And I was the first or second person to do the mock, which is I had to get on stage and I had to say the introduction, hello and welcome. Tonight I'm going to tell you this and that. I'm not going to go into the whole thing. And he wasn't a form leader yet. The person who was leading the classroom said, you just put your sexual energy on all 500 people here. And I said, I did not. I was so humiliated. He said, yes, you did. He said, everyone here got a little turn on by your greeting. And I said, that is so not true. I didn't even know what to do. I mean, it was like I was being shamed. My interpretation.
Right.
I was being shamed in front of 500 people for being hot. And I
was like, what the fuck?
I said, no, I didn't. He said, okay, pick a pair of eyes, pick someone, and do just to that person and see what happens. So I went, hello and welcome tonight, da-da-da. And I did the opening bit.
Right.
And this guy turned bright red. His whole face turned bright red. And he said, I could use a cigarette. And I said, no, you don't. I was so
That's
embarrassed.
awesome.
So basically what happened was that weekend I got candidated, to be an introduction to the form leader. And soon thereafter I went on staff. And basically I took my sexuality and I put it in my desk drawer, my right bottom desk drawer. And I became like a nun for the few years that I worked at Landmark. I rarely allowed my sexual energy to flow because I was so shamed by that particular person. I'm not naming any names here.
Yeah.
I'll tell you later.
Okay.
But anyway.
I want you to.
So when I left Landmark and I went into Tantra, all of a sudden all my juices, everything in me started to flow again.
Yeah.
That's why I cried so much. Like I remembered who I was as a sentient being, as a divine being, as a female-bodied being who has access to exactly what you're talking about, to the Da Vinci Code, if you want,
absolutely.
to the Holy Grail.
Yeah. I want to be, and this is I want to be a Vegeti. Now, here's what I mean by
We can
that.
decorate you with bindis down there.
So you take Jedi and the word vagina, and now we have Vegeti. So, and that was coined by Brandy, my daughter-in-law. She's amazing. So we talk about all kinds of cool stuff.
Very cool.
But here's
I think I'd like to experience that.
You should.
I know a lot of
actually.
people who would like to experience that. You
The
might have to
Vegeta.
have a training academy.
I think so. And actually, one of the things that I was going to mention was I would love to take my particular philosophy and share it with young men. I think that they need to understand the women that they're pursuing are not just, sexual organs for,
Depositories.
copulation, or just, masturbating with their vaginas. I mean, that's not who they're dealing with. And I think it's important that they know that. And I think it's important that people be trained and at least wake up to the fact that you're dealing with goddesses in the realest form. I mean,
This is good. And you can't, I'm just going to say, there's a limitation here
Sure.
just that I see. You can't just give that information to the male young men. Young women have to get that that's who they are too. And believe me,
Yeah.
they don't get that. So they need the education just as much.
absolutely.
I do classes with teenagers. I mean, you were asking me about my classes, and
Yeah.
I've worked with teens from 12 to 17. And I had a blast teaching them about their sexuality.
Yeah, I think that's young for me. That's a bit young.
Well, you can't teach them what you're
No,
talking
no,
about, but I taught them some things. They were
bet
great.
you did.
I'll give you a
Let's hear a story about
I'll
that.
give you a quick story. So I bought a lot of condoms and a lot of bananas so that I could teach them how to put a condom on properly.
Okay.
And so I bought different colors, different flavors, and I didn't realize, but I bought some for this class for them, which were Day Glow.
Oh, wow.
So the boys all went into a closet in my house, in my Tantra room. They went into this
Oh, my
closet, and they put the Day Glow condom on the banana. And one of the boys, he was 15 at the time, he said, "Wow, look at how this glows. If I had this on, I'd always know where my penis was."
Does it relocate to your elbow or what?
I thought that was the funniest
That
thing.
is so adorable.
But I worked with them on boundaries, like being like social pressure, how to say no, no matter what.
Yeah.
That their bodies are their temples. All of them. I said to them, your bodies are your temples, and you don't have to succumb to social pressure to do anything.
Right.
And you also don't have to succumb to your parents' pressure about who owns your body.
Right.
You own your body, and you will choose in the appropriate moment whether you want to share it with somebody. And I'm telling you to wait a little longer than hormones rushing. You're going to find that hormones are going to rush through your body, and it's going to feel like you have to make a move, and you don't. But don't succumb to either your peer pressure or your parents. You determine your life.
Yeah.
And their parents knew that I was teaching them that. So
Okay.
it was pretty amazing.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, really, and we'll talk. I'd love to talk to you about this because I want your counsel on this. Really, I would love to have you be involved.
I'd love to.
There's a book inside of me about it, but what I want to do is I want to take, I want to eliminate or radically reduce the number of rapes that happen on college campuses. Ending it altogether is my actual ultimate goal. And I think that it would be great to have, not great, I think it's necessary to have the conversation with young men and women about who we're dealing with and what sex is. And I would love for you to speak to that, because there are young people just don't know that there are boundaries many times, or that there's a,
I didn't.
Yeah, well, she said no, but I'm sure that I could convince her, or push her, or or pressure her a little bit, or even
slip her a Mickey,
or seduce her. Like there's this thing that I can seduce her and it's fine and she'll be okay, but that if she said no, it's still rape.
Even if she said I don't know.
Yeah,
that's no. Like if you're not a hell yes, if a person in our boundary work in Tantra, if a person's not a hell yes, that's a no.
That's a no.
Maybe is a no.
Yeah. And well, so again, when we're talking to young men, if they don't have the honor as a philosophy of this is a goddess that I'm going to help release, then why are they there? It's a very different experience. And I get it.
They're there because of the animal instinct,
exactly.
They're procreation, the survival of the species.
Yeah.
But they have to. I mean, that's a drive inside. That's their hormonal force.
Yeah. But the other thing I want to take away is that sex is dirty. I want to take away the idea that, it shouldn't be done unless you're married, or you got to love the person. You might just be animalistically attracted to that person, and it's a hell yes right then and there. And, be safe, right? Use condoms. But still, that's optional, I think, and it should be. And it shouldn't be where a boy has 5 or 6 girls that he's, spending time with, and he's a stud, and a gal has 5 or 6 guys that she's spending time with, but she's a slut. I want to take both of those words out of the equation. And then I want people to realize that we are essentially sexual beings.
Yeah.
From the DNA up to the psyche, to the philosophies of our lives and how we interact with people, sexual energy is healing.
Sexual energy is the vital life force. It's how we got here. It's creation and it's creativity. So we're using it now, just speaking on this show. I used it to write my book. I used it to create my workshops. I used it to do movies. You use it to do this podcast. You use it in everything else that you do. It's people who are poets use it. People who are artists use it. People who are IT professionals use it. People who are, every kind of doctors and lawyers. That's all their sexual energy. And Napoleon Hill talked about it in Think and Grow Rich, but most people are too dopey to even know that's what he was talking about.
What I think is funny about
Chapter 9.
The whole book, right? So you start to read the end of the book, right? The last chapters, and it's all about sex.
But a lot of people, they make like that didn't happen.
Yeah, Think and Grow Rich is a fantastic book.
So it's I'm stuck.
You're having some trouble.
Okay. So it's the vital life force. So I want to go back to something. I want to talk about my classes, but there's something. My parents never said the word boundary.
No.
And, I don't think yours did. No one's parents ever said the word boundary.
Well, they taught us about sex, but mine didn't. My dad taught me about sex, but it was not the conversation that I had with my daughter. Like I had a much more candid, here's what's to expect. And his was more of like, you have a penis and she has a vagina and that's where that goes.
Oh, thanks,
And I was
Dad.
like, okay, cool. I think I can figure that out.
I know everything now.
Oh, wait a minute. He handed me a Hustler magazine as well.
Oh no, my father and I were. I had already had sexual relations, but I hadn't had sexual intercourse when I was a freshman in college. I came home and my father and I were walking on the beach in New York, and I said, "Pop, I think I'm probably going to have sex this year." And he said to me, "Okay, that's good, Laurie." He said, "Listen, don't make the best thing out of it and don't make the worst thing out of it. It just is. It's something that should be enjoyed, but it's not the best thing in the world and it's not the worst thing in the world. It just is. It's part of life." So I said, "Well, thanks." And he said, "Oh, and by the way, if you get pregnant, you're going to have to be responsible for that. So don't get pregnant." He said, "I'm not going to deal with it. You're going to have to deal with it. So you got to be responsible." Meantime, we went home and I said to my mother, "Listen, I told Pop that I'm going to have sex this year." And he said to me, soon. And he said to me, "It's not the worst thing. It's not the best thing in the world. It's, it just is." And my mother took out every pot and pan and threw it at both of us. That's my sexual education. I learned about sex from my cousin. My mother wasn't on time.
No.
But I had, I think I was very precocious. I can remember being 7 years old in the bathroom, and exploring myself and touching myself, and my mother yelling, "What are you doing in there?" And I would be like, "I'll be out soon." I was just like, I was getting off in a little girl kind of a way. Yeah. And I was always like that. In high school, I used to be the girl that went. All the boys in my class, in my high school, used to be the jocks. They used to stand by the cafeteria, all in a row against the wall, and they would say things, and they would like make innuendos when the girls would walk by with their books. And I was the girl who would go to one of them and say, "What did that thing mean?" And they would tell me, and then I'd go into the girls' locker room and I would tell everybody what it was.
What?
No, I was doing sex ed back then.
You were awesome.
I would go right up to my jock friends, those were my boys, and I would say to them, "Okay, you were humming when we walked by. What is that?" And one of them would say, "That's a hum job." "What is that?" "Well, that's when a girl puts her mouth on a boy's penis and she makes a sound." And I said, "Oh my God, you guys are too," and then I'd run right into the girls' locker room and I go, "Okay, gather round."
I got the goods.
Here's what they meant. They always told me. Yeah. So because they loved me and I loved them. So, some of those guys are still friends of mine.
That's cool. That's very
cool.
cool.
I always found out what everything meant, and I would always tell everybody, I would spread the education, because certainly no one was educating us,
Well, I want to ask you about your podcast, because I love the fact that you have one, that you've been at it a long time. How many downloads a month do you get?
About 100,000.
You're a big deal, baby.
Yeah.
I love it.
I do. It's great. My show's called Sex and Happiness.
Yeah, that's appropriate.
And my book is called Sex and Happiness. And I realized, I'm in a transition right now. I'm rebranding myself into a sex and happiness coach as opposed to a Tantra teacher. Okay. Because when I tell people I'm a Tantra teacher, they still look at me like it's too woo-woo.
Right.
And if I say I teach transformation through pleasure, they still look at me like it's too woo-woo. Yeah. So I just say I'm a sex and happiness coach, and then they go, "Oh, that's so cool." Like they can connect to that.
That makes sense.
They can totally connect to that.
When I was in the class,
Bliss, you were in Bliss.
And I was in Bliss, and it was completely amazing. I think back to that, and I'm so turned on by just the experience of it all.
What turns you on the most?
The fact that I was in a room with all strangers, and there was no weirdness about it. Like, that knocked me over a little bit, because I was, again, in Laurie Han, and I didn't even know it. I was doing something that I never would have done. I paid, I paid for the class and went to the class, and I just met you. And I was like, I'm going to go check this out.
I like that about you, by the way.
Thank you.
That you jump into Laurie Han.
I loved it. It was so me. But here's what really got me, is that while we were in there, the first things that you said as you were introducing what we were going to do that day, you said, "Listen, I don't want you to turn this into a religion, okay? And if you do turn it into a religion, you can't call it this." because that's not what this is.
Right.
This is people really connecting at a spiritual level, but it's not a religion. And so I really love the fact that you didn't give it the woo-woo. You allowed us to just experience it as it was. And I'm telling you, I walked out of there just like all these people that I wish I could have stayed later because I had to go.
Oh, yeah, you did, right.
Because I would have loved to exchange, phone numbers and everything else. And
I can give them,
Sure.
I'm sure people would like that.
And I would love to have them on the podcast and even share their experiences and what's going forward, So, but yeah, it was so just, I was moved. Definitely.
Great. I appreciate that. I'm honored to hear that.
So tell me about your podcast. I want to hear about it.
Well, I started in 2006 with a podcast called Tantra Cafe.
That's a great name.
It was a great name.
I like it.
I own it. I own the domain, whatever.
Yeah, baby.
Anyway, it was great. It was a New York station called Tribeca Radio.
Yeah.
And I used to go into a studio like this. And I used to have a guest, and I had music, and I had commercials, and I had whatever I had. And then I did that until 2010. I changed stations twice. I went from Tribeca to BBS Radio, and from BBS to Web Talk Radio, which is where I am right now. And in around 2009, it just got old for me. Like, much as I love Tantra, if one more guest said to me, I'd say, give us a tip. Like, what's your favorite Tantra practice? And they go, eye gazing. Like everyone said, eye gazing.
Eye gazing.
I love eye gazing. Don't get me wrong, but tell me something else.
Right.
So I interviewed all the world's great tantrics, pretty much. I mean, the famous ones, the Charles Muir, Margot Anand, Baba Dez, Crystal Dawn Morris. I mean, all these people who are now my colleagues,
Yeah.
but I didn't really know them then. And I fell in love with all of them by interviewing them. But I started getting bored. Like, I felt like the pool or the pond was too small. So I changed the title of my show. I rebranded my show to Sex and Happiness. And I opened up my horizons to the whole world of sex and happiness. And so now I have guests who are into BDSM, and I have guests who are into finding a way to have sex when you have alopecia and you have to wear a wig all the time, and for how that affects your sex life. And I have guests who I've dealt with male erectile dysfunction. I've dealt with female dryness and different things that go on with women. I've dealt with the whole notion of making yourself happy and how that affects your sex life, like what happiness is. I've dealt with aging and sex. I've dealt with nudists and where they go, and is that really sexy or is it not sexy, or all kinds of things that I never would have broached if I just stayed in the Tantra world. The Tantra world is a smaller pond. So I'm, how I got bigger, what you called me a legend, is by branching out into the world of sex and happiness. Sex, the word, happiness, the word, are the two most searched for words on the internet. But I didn't know that when I wrote my book.
Brilliant.
My book was brilliant, and then I named it Sex and Happiness, and that just came to me. It's Laurie Han,
It's Laurie Han.
Yeah. So my show is fun. I used to do 2 guests per show, and that was too rigorous for me. Like landing 2 guests per week, or landing 6 guests and pre-recording 3 shows because I was going out of town, which my travel schedule is ridiculous. It just became too much coordination. So now I shortened my show. It's a 40-minute show instead of an hour. And I only have 1 guest or a couple or whatever. And, 2 people that are the 1 guest.
Right.
And I'm much happier with it. And I love my show. It's really, it's fun. It got revitalized for me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And you have this whole new genre that you get to play around with. And you mentioned, right, BDSM. And so I'm a fan. I've been playing around with BDSM for a little bit. I wouldn't call myself an expert, but I'm consider myself dominant. And I appreciate the pleasure pain aspect of it, but not for punishment. I'm not interested in that kind of pain. So like, how would you broach that with a woman, like, or a man? Like, how would you say, I'm interested in this, and I think you'd be a great sexual partner, and here's what I'm into.
That's exactly how you do it.
Perfect.
And somebody would reject you because they're not into it, or they'd say, "I'm game, let's play."
Right. That's easy.
To me, it's now I got asked the question because I'm sponsoring somebody soon, coming here from New York, who was a student of mine, who is a friend of mine, and who is now a dom in New York, and really understands the power dynamic better than almost anyone I've ever talked to. And I've interviewed a lot of people into BDSM.
Yeah.
Some famous people, Barbara Corellis,
wow.
who's an awesome Tantra teacher. I love her. This man has a way of describing the dynamic that's, well, his name is Om Rupani. He has a way of describing the dynamic in a way that tantrics can get it. Tantrikas can get it. Like, it's still honoring, and there's still the goddess and the god, and there's an exchange that happens because a person might not be able to take themselves alone, to take themselves as far as they really want to experience sensation, and they need someone else or someone else's to do that. And it doesn't have to necessarily be punishing, although for some people, the biggest breakthrough is experiencing some pain or sitting in a corner, facing the corner, or being humiliated in some way. Yeah. That wouldn't necessarily be my scene, but he explained it to me how there's a yearning in the person, whoever the person is that's attracted to this, to give over control so they can experience a pleasure that is beyond their reach if they wouldn't surrender control. So they would only surrender control in a safe, very safe environment. Yeah. It's something you said before also about my class. I just want to bring this. In my vocabulary is the sacred masculine. And that's something we don't experience a lot on this planet. Mostly the unsacred masculine, the immature masculine is at war all the time, or proving, or that's what you want to impact, what you said about young men. Yeah. The sacred masculine is the safety and holding space for anything to arise, for Laurie Handlers to arise even. Right. So what I've experienced with this particular man, who I know very, very well, is he holds a sacred space for bodies where people can explore to their own boundary, to their own limit, not necessarily get hurt, and feeling safe to explore, just like you felt safe in my class to explore certain boundaries that you may have known or not known that you had, just breathing with people. Yeah. So that
was big.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what I see about it. It's not that I'm, it's not number one on my hit parade, BDSM, but he introduced me to being able to play with it to an extent that I could experience some things that I had never experienced before. And so I found new Laurie Handlers. New things to play with.
So a lot of people are really enamored by the 50 Shades of Grey books,
God,
right?
Wait, I'm showing up.
So the funny thing is that there's so many people that are actually. Here's how I credit the work, right, of the books, that it awakened a lot of people to
housewives.
For sure. What's possible with dominant and submissive
in a totally stupid way. I mean, in a totally unreal way. The other thing in the book is that they always orgasm together. I've never known two people who climax together. It's rare. And these two always, whenever they went together in the book, they always go, oh, and they both come. Yeah. That just doesn't happen. That is such BS.
Well, so, yeah.
Obviously, the woman who wrote the book doesn't know anything. But anyway.
As a rule, men, it's 3-1. So her 3 to your 1.
Right. Thank you.
Just FYI.
I say it's 10-1.
I agree. and it takes work. So just be ready for
Yeah.
it.
So anyway, so back to BDSM. Yes.
Yeah.
50 Shades of Grey opened up a conversation that people were not having before.
Right.
It gave, in Land Martian terms, it gave a ground of being for possibility that people hadn't explored before. Only like, it was thought that only like wacko, sicko psychos did that. Went to dungeons, or whatever. And now it's opened up the experimentation. However, see, again, like I'm a person who says, here's the thing. You'll probably know this analogy. I feel if you read a book about balance, you wouldn't know how to ride a bike. You'd know the concept balance. That's all. You wouldn't really know how to ride a bike unless someone was running alongside of you and holding you up and pedal, 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 pedal. You wouldn't really know how to ride a bike. I feel the same way about Tantra, and I feel the same way about BDSM or any of it. I feel we need someone holding the safe space. We need an instructor. We need somebody who can guide us, because just reading a book about Tantra or just reading a book about, or just going out and buying some floggers, like, you could really seriously hurt somebody and they could never want to explore or experiment again. So I always err on the side of finding a teacher.
That's true.
A guide, if you will.
I agree completely. It's similar to, well, I won't say that. I think it's exactly that. And if you don't have a mentor or somebody who can coach you, and I hate to use the word coach in this sense. Why? But it fits.
It's a coach.
You're going to have somebody that can actually give you what works, what doesn't work. Everybody knows about safe words, right? Like safe words is a thing, but what do the safe words do, right? And then are there more than one safe word? Is there a warning word? Do are you even listening to a woman's body? And most men, I think, don't. I think what they're listening to is the sensation that's happening on the shaft of their cock. And I think what men need to do is start to really listen to how a woman breathes, listen to how a woman reacts and responds, and how she shifts her hips and maybe her legs spread or close. Or there are a lot of things that are going on in the moment, and if you don't listen to the woman, you're missing all of it.
You missed the whole thing.
Yeah. And you're not actually
what happened?
You're not making love.
Right.
Or you're not fucking. I mean, can I say it that? This is the edge, by the way. We can say these things.
Oh, good. I've been holding back.
We're adults here. I actually want you to there was a story you told me about, and you practice this thing called sex magic.
Oh, I do.
And you shared it with me.
And I teach it.
And I'm getting a little warm right now just thinking about it, but I would love for you to tell that story. And then I want to talk about your website, your book. I want you to share all of your materials with us, because I want to give our audience the ability to really find out more about you.
So you mean the sex, I don't know which story you're referring to.
Sex magic, yeah. You were down in Mexico.
Oh, in Mexico. Okay, yeah.
Tell that one.
Okay, so recently, this past Thanksgiving, I was in Mexico at the Desire Resort. I was at Desire Riviera Maya. Desire have 3 resorts, or 4, and they're clothing optional, couples only resorts.
Right.
And 6 of us went there to teach Tantra. We had a mini Tantra festival for 5 days.
How many people showed up?
Well, in my classes, 10 to 16 people would show up. So that would be like 5 to 8 couples would show up every day. And it's so funny because if I made my own schedule, I would have made sex magic late in the week because it's more advanced than the other stuff that I was teaching down there. But my dear colleague and friend, Frank Mondoze from Montreal, he's, by the way, his website is Sexual Renaissance. So I have a good story about that too. But anyway, Frank made the schedule and he put my very first day sex magic. And I guess that was to appeal to people at the resort because they didn't know anything. So we were handing out flyers and whatever. So 14 people, 7 couples show up in my class, and I teach them about sex magic. I talk to them and I tell them what they can do, and I'm going to send them off to do some sex magic in their rooms. And by the way, here's just the
What is sex magic?
essential.
I just got to know.
Yeah, I know. The essential of sex magic is you set your intention. What do you want?
Okay.
And I set my intention. What do I want?
Mm-hmm.
And then we agree that those are going to be our intentions. And then the man is going to make the woman's body into an altar where he prays. Now he's going to pray sexually, but he's also going to pray like with either mantras or chants or Rumi poems or a poem he writes or a song, a Beatles song. I don't care. You know, it could be anything that's sacred to him, that means something to him, that he's going to deliver to her over and over again. And it's not like it is like going to church, but the altar is not like, you don't take the sacrament like from some priest handing it to you. The sacrament is the woman's body. That's the place where you pray.
Yeah.
And then very slowly, the men are going to bring the men are going to bring their partners to orgasm. They could take an hour. They could take 2 hours. I usually say to men, like, I don't like them to make a formula, but I usually say to men, spend 20 minutes on each breast. Most men don't know how to, they'd feel like, what am I doing for 20 minutes? Because most men are like, kiss, kiss, feel, wet, stick it in,
It's true.
So I'm like, no, don't just kiss, kiss. Like, really explore this breast like you've never seen this breast or these nipples or anything before.
Yeah.
So
I love nipples, by the way.
that's good to know.
Yeah.
So is everyone out there listening to this?
I hope so.
His preferences. So anyway, so I teach them all this in the class, and then I'm going to send them to their rooms. I'm going to send them to their rooms to practice sex magic. And they say to me, we don't want this class to be over. Can we do it? I said, what do you mean, can we do it? They said, can we practice sex magic together here tonight? And I look at them. I don't know. I've never been to this resort before. And I go, okay, yeah. I'm not going to ask the resort for permission. I just make it up. It's a full moon. It's the November full moon.
Wow.
It's the day before my birthday, actually. It was like November 26th, I think, or November 25th, whatever. And I go, okay, meet me at poolside in the Palapa, which is like the place where the palm fronds are. And I say, we'll do it for an hour from 10 to 11. You all have to get an intention. You all have to get both a personal intention and a world intention. And then the men, you have to bring offerings to the goddess. You have to bring flowers, wine, chocolate, something. And they say, fine. So at 10 o'clock at night, and that night at the resort was dressed to impress. So everybody looked so hot. They were wearing like the hottest outfits. And they all met me at the pool, and we went around. Everyone said their intention. Yeah. And then we agreed on a world intention. And then I said, okay, take your places.
A world intention?
Yeah, like world peace. Like at the time, it was the whole thing with Syrian refugees.
Right.
So that's what was going on. So we all.
So you were using sexual energy on the world, like as a coordinated effort. Wow, that's.
Wait a second, it's not new. That's not new.
Come on.
There are people who say
Like
have orgasms for peace. And don't you remember John Lennon and Yoko Ono having a sleep-in Canada and Toronto because they wanted peace? All we are saying is give peace a chance, and they were like naked in bed. I mean, it's not a new concept.
Okay, all right.
So people agreed that we would.
Don't attack my microphone.
I'm sorry. People agreed that we would set the intention as the Syrian refugees would be ushered in peacefully and, absorbed, and they would live peacefully, and they would live happy and peaceful lives. Right. So we all agreed on that, and then everyone took their places. So 3 couples were in the Palapa that I was in because there was a very big round mattress in it, and then there were various mattresses like beds around the pool because that's the kind of resort it is. Okay. With little curtains and things, and so bunches of.
So there was some privacy around.
Yeah, and there were 16 couples.
Oh my goodness.
In total, and me. I wasn't in a couple.
Okay.
So I said to everybody, okay, take your places.
There were 16 couples or 16 people?
16 couples.
Oh, wow. 32 people.
Something like that. There was a lot of people.
Plus you.
And they all had a place to lay down, and some of them shared a space. And then there was me, and I said to everybody, okay, go really slowly and start to build to orgasm for the woman, and do not by any means have her orgasm until 10 minutes to 11. So you have 40 minutes to pray, to state your intention, to like give her a little wine, a little chocolate, whatever, and to manipulate her body slowly, like slower than a snail, in a way that you've probably never touched her before or explored her before, so that she gets to feel like something totally new is happening to her. And at the end, when she does
doing this again?
I just in July. I'm doing a
Okay, all
class
right, I'm in.
in Phoenix.
In Phoenix, awesome.
Yeah. So then I said to them at the end, when she orgasms, you aim the orgasm towards out the top of her head to connect with every orgasm there's ever been on the planet. These intentions, both your personal intentions and the world intentions, any orgasm that's ever been and any orgasm that ever will be, out the top, the crown chakra. Mm-hmm. And so they all listened, and then around 20 to 11, I got up from touching myself, and I started walking around in my high heels, back and forth like kind of a sergeant, but Frank called me the drunken priestess. Like I walked up and back, and I was going, I don't hear you. I don't hear any sound. We're building to that point of orgasm. You need to inspire each other. I need to hear you, and each of you need to hear each other. We need to be united in sound. Now, we didn't say this before, but Tantra is breathing, sound, and movement. Mm-hmm. So there was breathing and there was movement, but there wasn't any sound. There wasn't enough to hear. And so I was like, come on, don't make me crawl in there with you and choke you to make a sound. Make a sound. So they all started to make sound, and they were like, oh, I could hear, like the whole pool was lit up by the sound of, oh. And then at 10 to 11, everyone started to orgasm. And the orgasm went on, and we were under the full moon. It had rained all day, but the moon was showing now. Wow. And everyone's intention went out the top of their head. The women's. Yeah. The men didn't. The men in my sex magic, the men don't climax. The men pray. Yeah. And so everyone came at the exact same 10 minutes, Wow. And then at 11, I just went, okay, I'm so proud of you. Oh my God, I'm so moved. I was crying. and everyone started to like get up, sit up, smooth out whatever they were wearing, if they were wearing clothes, if they weren't, to put some clothes back on, to put their high heels back on, because we were all going to go to the disco. So
orgasm and a disco.
It was an amazing.
It
was an amazing ceremony. It was an amazing ritual. In Tantra, we call it rituals. Yeah. And that was spontaneous. I didn't even think to do that. But I'm never going to any of those resorts I go to again and not do it.
For sure.
I'm always going to do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a wonderful thing.
That's very hot.
Thank you.
By the way, and tell me what did your participants, your students, come away with?
Oh my God!
What was the response that they had to that?
They've never had an experience quite like that. A few of them were probably swingers, because at the resort there were people who swapped together. Yeah. Not everyone that came to my class, but every one of them, hands down, said they've never experienced anything that intense, that orgasmic, that unknown, and that like focused. Wow. And the women said, and the women always say after sex magic, that they've never felt so cherished, so nurtured, so honored, so seen, every part of them seen, every part of them attended to, like never before. I mean, when I say to men, slow down, I mean like slow it down. Yeah. Like don't go fast. Like why? What are you rushing for? There's nowhere to get.
Yeah.
So then they all wanted to do it again.
I always got to ask the question, what time do you got to be at work? That'll let me know if I got 6 or 8 hours.
That's a good question, and that's a good answer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
That was pretty juicy. Let's talk about how do we get some of the materials that you have? I mean, you have a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah.
And experience. And I want my listeners, my viewers, to know how to get to you. So what's your website?
It's butterflyworkshops.com.
Okay, cool. We'll pull that up.
And that's with a plural on the S, Butterfly Workshops.
Okay.
It's like my name, Handlers.
Oh,
I have
like that.
plural S on each one. So butterflyworkshops.com is where you can find out about
we got it up right now.
Yeah, where you can find out about my classes. And you can order things. Can I do show and tell?
Yeah. Let's go ahead and do that.
So I have my book on my website, Sex and Happiness.
Yeah.
And you can get this on my website or Amazon. I prefer you to get it from me. But just saying, I also have my Bliss, which is DVD of my class that you took.
The intro class.
Yeah, the intro class. So some people are never going to make it to Phoenix, New York,
Yeah.
London, like wherever I teach. So they're gonna be in Sheboygan or somewhere. So they can order the video and they can follow along.
And that is the class that I did with you, the first one. Yeah.
Yeah. I also have a CD called What is Tantra? This I recorded in front of 75 people in New York City, and it's pretty funny.
That's my copy, right?
Sure. It's a funny video.
Right.
It was done quite a while ago, and then you also can go. You can. I don't think you can get this on my website, but this is just to show you. I'm in 2 films. This is Tantric Tourists, and you can get this on iTunes. You can rent it on iTunes.
Really?
It's a hysterical film.
I love it.
Where I take 13 people to India to learn spiritual enlightenment. And in fact, it's hysterical travel. We call it a mockumentary.
Mockumentary.
It was made by 2 Brits who made total fun of me and of my tourists. But I love these 2 people, and it's won amazing awards in every film festival it's been in. And then I have another one that you can get. You have to search it on the internet. It's called Beyond Dinner. And that film is a short. It's 33 minutes. I think you can get it. I'm not sure if it's Vimeo or Distrify, but you just type in Beyond Dinner. Okay. And I do something in my 2nd level course, which you haven't done yet. The course is called Ecstasy. And the first evening of Ecstasy is a dinner called the Gate dinner. Gate in Sanskrit means beyond. And it's an exercise in boundaries and an exercise in honoring each other as God and Goddess, using food as an aphrodisiac. So the women are all seated in stationary in a place, and the men rotate around to each woman and have an offering of food and wine, many desserts, because we do all the things Mom didn't let us do. We actually start the dinner with dessert.
I love it.
And you could find yourself eating food off of different body parts, assuming that that's what that goddess wants to do with you. Yeah. But if she doesn't, you might just find yourself talking and eating asparagus. Like anything could happen in the Gate dinner. So that we made a film of that. And that won first place in a film festival for movie shorts. And I'm in both movies, and real people who are really students of mine.
Like documentary, very,
yes.
And yes, okay.
Yes. But in the second one, in Beyond Dinner, there's also 2 actors. There are a couple of people who...
I have to find out which ones they are. I'll be like, okay, that's an actor.
You would know.
I would know?
You'll know.
Okay.
Yeah, they're the 2 people who have the hard time with the dinner. Okay. No one else is having a hard time.
Everybody's fine with it. Yeah.
Everyone's having a great time in the dinner. So they're both very entertaining and funny.
Good.
Yeah, very funny. I couldn't be in something that wasn't funny.
I love funny.
Yeah. So you would find me on butterflyworkshops.com. You would find me on Facebook at Laurie Handlers, or what you had showing before.
Let's go pull that up. Laurie Handlers.
This is my personal page. And people can write to me, although I'm almost full. So I have 3 other pages. You had one up before, Sex and Happiness Book at Facebook. And then I have 2 others. I have Butterfly Workshops and I have Ask Laurie Handlers.
The funny thing about Facebook is they limit to you to like 2,000 or something like that. And I think they should limit you to like 50 million. Because how many fucking billion people are on Facebook now, right? It's ridiculous that they
well,
could.
it's 4. I think it's 5,000. They limit you to 5,000.
Okay.
Yeah,
They must have upped it.
I mean, I get so many requests, and I just say to people, listen, could you just follow me and try friend me on one of my other pages? I can't take any more.
Instagram has no limit.
Oh, really?
Neither does Twitter. So.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So those are the 2 places to go.
Well, I'm on Twitter.
I tweet you.
You do?
Yeah. I'll tweet you. I'll
tweet me, baby.
I'll retweet you.
Retweet me.
So one of the things that I wanted to address, because I think it's important people know this, but Tantra is an ancient practice. Can you speak a little bit to the history and the origins of not just Tantra, but a lot of what you teach has a very rich spiritual base in India and Egypt, China. So can you speak to that?
Yeah. So it's been around supposedly for about 6,000 years. And the thing I initiated people into, the Cobra breath, that's supposedly 6,000-year-old
Really?
breath.
Wow.
Yeah. It's I think the Tantra was started by the Egyptians myself.
Really?
The Egyptians were very smart people. I have 2 books on Egyptian sacred sexuality techniques. And I know some people who are into Egyptian forms.
Okay.
And I think what happened was when people were following the Silk Road and they were going down into India and they were going for spices and whatever, somehow Tantra made its way into India, and that's where it flourished.
Yeah.
And so not with all Indians, but with some Indians. Some Indians became tantrics. And they went past all boundaries. I mean, they went into all kinds of esoteric practices. And as I was talking about the Silk Road, I think what happened is then Chinese and Cambodians and all the people in Far East Asia started to come into India for spices, and they saw things.
Yeah, if you look at some of the pictures, the drawings, and the art that exists in those cultures, you're going to find that sex is very, very, it's a prevalent. It's not like America where sex is all about push-up bras and, hot asses. To them, sex was,
An art.
But
art form.
But here's a man with an erect penis, and he's clearly inside of a very aroused woman. Those are the pictures that you see depicted, and many different, styles and ways of being together, right? Positions, if you will.
Yeah, Kama Sutra.
Sure, Kama Sutra. Yeah, definitely. But the point is that that's like natural in that. And think about this: when were those pictures drawn? They're ancient.
Yeah.
And then they integrated gods and goddesses into those, right?
Yeah.
Speak on that.
Well, I'm going to talk a little bit about being in India and being at the Kama Sutra temples.
Okay.
So one of the places I bring people, and it's on the Tantric Tourist movie, is to Khajuraho, which has the greatest collection of Kama Sutra temples in one location. So Khajuraho is a little country town in the north part of India in Uttar Pradesh. And when you get there, the biggest collection is like 7 temples on one site. And I want to talk about it like the cosmic joke a little bit.
I'm gonna pull up all these pictures.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah. They're famous. If people know anything about Kama Sutra, they've seen these pictures. Okay. So when the way you approach a temple is to walk around it. You walk around clockwise. So you go to the left of the temple, and then you walk around it like as if you're going around a clock. And you see everything depicted. You see people doing bestiality. You see people doing orgies. You see they're carved into the stone. Wow. These are 900 years old, and they were commissioned by a group called the Chandalas, the Chandala kings. And nobody knows that much about the Chandalas or why they built them or what happened. And as a matter of fact, this is a factoid. When Gandhi was the Prime Minister of India, he was so uptight about his own sex life that he wanted to have them covered by dirt. He wanted to make mountains like, you know how like in Mexico, they
Right, yeah.
they rescue ruins from mountains.
Right, yeah.
They found Palenque by digging.
Yeah.
Gandhi wanted to cover the Kama Sutra temples because he was so embarrassed by them.
Really?
Yeah. So luckily Parliament won. Gandhi didn't win. You know, Parliament won, Gandhi 0. But anyway.
I heard a story about him that one of the things that he used to do as a discipline, because he was so uptight about his sexuality, was that he would have his one of his young cousins sleep with him in the nude, and he would not touch her.
Right.
And is that really did that really he really did that?
I think so. I wasn't there, but
I also heard that he had extramarital affairs.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know.
You know, so that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, so you go to these temples, back to the temples. I
Sure.
always like to say this because I'm so glad he didn't win this decision. But anyway, so you walk around and then you see people in all different positions. You see these very busty goddesses and you see men touching them in all different ways. And there were all different pictures carved into these stones. And so you walk around and then you go in. So you could look at this like a vagina or a yoni. Like it's a temple and you go walk around and you go in. So outside you see all these carnal things that could happen.
It's like porn.
It's not.
It's like ancient porn.
No, it
then
isn't. Well, then you go in.
I'm being funny.
Okay.
I'm just being funny.
I'm being literal.
Okay.
And then you go in and there's almost nothing. It's like there's an altar inside.
Mm-hmm.
There's probably a statue of a god inside. And there could be a statue of a god with cobras coming out of the head, you know, all around the head.
Right.
And you would offer money or honey or flowers or whatever. And you could walk into the inner sanctum and there's almost nothing depicted. It's crisp. It's shiny. It's nothing. And it really is, and this is, you know, what I think, that all of this overt sexuality is a lure to get you to experience everything and then get unattached to it.
Wow.
It's to the state of samadhi is a place that in Sanskrit where Indians talk about reaching a spiritual high where they're not attached or addicted to anything. And so these temples, the priests and priestesses of these temples knew the secret.
Yeah.
And then we think, oh yeah, look at all this sex, you know, they depict everything like this is so cool. And then
fucking Americans.
yeah, and then we go, but it's not only Americans.
It's like
then we
everyone.
go in,
It's the French too.
and we go, wow, it's like clear in here. It's like I went through all that to get to a place where I'm clear, I'm unattached. I could, and I don't have to. I'm not. It's not. It doesn't have me. I have it, if I want it.
Yeah.
And so that's the whole secret of the Kama Sutra. That's the whole secret of the temples, and it's interesting to behold. It's very interesting to behold.
It's like being able to tap into the divine.
Yes.
And but there's a path.
Yes.
And the fastest, most alluring path, I think,
Is sex.
is sex.
Uh-huh.
Without a doubt.
Ding.
Yay!
It's true, and it's
I'm a great student. I'm just saying.
well.
But you're a great teacher. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
You get it. You know, a lot of people just don't get it, so they get stuck. You know, they get stuck in porn, or they get stuck in fantasy, or they get stuck in doing it one way, or they get stuck in, you know, missionary position. I mean, there's so many ways you could get stuck in sex.
Yeah.
Or you could get so addicted. There are people who can't like break away from their computers because they're watching porn all the time, or you can get really addicted. And the fact is that I don't think it's meant to be that.
Yeah.
The thing I love about Tantra, or at least the way I teach, I don't know if everyone does, but I like to break people up. I like to break up the way they think it's supposed to be, the way they think they have to have it, the way they've done it all the time, and go into Laurie Han and just go, make love in the unknown, make love to life in the unknown, pray for the unknown, pray for something different. And when Laurie Han or the unknown becomes your prayer, phew, everything is hot. Everything. It's like having an orgasmic life.
Yeah.
You know?
What would that be like?
I have that.
You do.
That would be like me.
Yeah.
That would be like being really happy, dealing with whatever's uncomfortable or an annoyance in the moment, getting back into the thrill of life, and facing each day like an adventure. And each moment.
Yeah. Taking it.
That's what it would be like.
Yeah.
That's my life.
I'm enrolled. That's how I want my life to be. I mean, it's just absolutely amazing.
Are you my fan?
I'm a total fan. Mike G is a huge fan. Hashtag that shit. I love you.
Thank you.
You're just an amazing, sexy woman. Thank you. Thank you for this. So.
Oh, can I just say something about my haircut?
Please, yeah, please.
This is the first time I'm appearing anywhere with my hair totally short.
This is it.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I'm not like Samson and Delilah. Like I
You powerful either way.
when I cut my hair off, I thought, oh my God. But you know what? I'm digging it. So it's just like it's not even a week old.
I know, I like it.
My hair's short.
Yeah, I love it.
Thank you.
That's great. So the last thing that I want to finish on, I think, is really, when we start to talk, and we talked about this just recently, about young people and kind of how young people are just they're kind of stuck, right? Like we're not.
So we're adults, by the way.
Yeah, for sure. But as a culture, we're kind of. I think we're probably growing into it a little bit. But as a culture, we're very messed up about sex. I mean, in America.
In North America, yes.
North America.
Even Canada, they're pretty messed up. Although Montreal, was built on 4 people who originally settled Montreal, left France for sexual freedom reasons. Really? 2 of them were people of the cloth. Wow. I found that out last year from my dear friend Frank Mondozé.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. At the Sexual Renaissance Conference.
And you've actually worked with young people and you've trained people and so when I think about what's available for young men, if they understood some of this, like that they just had a much deeper connection to their sexual being, and it's not like it's separate from anything else. It's there, it's latent. It's why we're always horny. It's why when we see a woman walk by and she's got great calves and hot high heels and it all forms up into that ass, and you just like, oh my God. That is always going on for men. Yeah. Right?
It is.
And unless you're gay, and then it's the guy with the cool shoes.
With his calves.
With his thing.
Tight ass.
His tight ass, right? So, but sex, regardless, if it's heterosexual or homosexual, sex is a part of every aspect of our lives.
I have to just say this. In the trailer to the film Beyond Dinner, I say, sex energy runs the world. And the sooner you make peace with this, the better off you'll be. End of story. I mean, it runs the world because the survival of the species has to take place. And here's the thing. You heard this. You heard me. I don't know if you heard me say this last week. There's 4 kinds of sex. There's 4 types of sex.
4 types.
And what you want to do is introduce young people to the other 2, the last 2. Right. So the 4 types of sex. There's procreation. That's animal sex. Any animal can do it, and any 2 people can do it. Yep. And it's for the survival of the planet. It's the DNA. It's the genetic imprint. You have to procreate. Yeah. 2, recreational sex. Mm-hmm. You go out to a bar, you meet somebody or some bodies, and you go, you look pretty good after my 4th drink. And the house lights are still low. You want to go home with me? Yeah. And you go home and you have recreational sex with somebody. You might not even get their name or their number. Right. You're just having a good time for the evening. Mm-hmm. The 2 other forms of sex are restoration sex, and transformational sex. So you can have restorative sex, which is you have sex with somebody and it restores every cell and molecule in your body and their body. Like it feels so nourishing and so good and so complete that they come away feeling like, and you come away feeling like you've had a 2-week vacation in paradise because the sex was that good and there was so much presence. And then there's transformational sex, which has to do with coming together with somebody and loosening your molecules and melting so much that you feel like you're spinning and traveling in the cosmos. You melt and meld together so that you're like a spaceship, only you can't feel the edges of the rocket. It's the thing people take drugs for to experience, only this is free and it comes from the body. And you melt with the universe. When I had the experience in my first class, I felt like I was a drop of water in the ocean.
Wow.
Like I melted with the whole being of is. So those two things are the things I think you want to educate young people about. Restorative and transformational sex, and let them know it's possible. I have a quick story.
Go.
When I lived in D.C., I was invited to the University of Maryland 2 years in a row by a fraternity and sorority. It was interesting. It was a black fraternity and a white sorority. African-American boys and white girls.
Were they smoking pot?
They were so cute. I don't know what they were doing. They invited me to come and present on Tantra, and I went in and I did like a 2-hour thing, and then the next year I did a 2-hour thing. So then I moved to New York in 2006 because my father was aging, and I was just trying to figure out what was going on with him. So I moved back to New York. And I'm on a subway going up to East 96th Street. No, West. And two young black people are on the subway with me, and they're smiling. And I didn't know whether, we rubbed arms. I know what happened. She bumped into me, and I said, no worries. And then they looked at me, and they both were smiling. And then I heard him say, that's her. And I said, what? And they said, we were freshmen at the University of Maryland when you came and presented at my fraternity, he said, and we were there. He said, and you changed our whole lives. We are together. We've been together since we were freshmen. We graduated a few years ago. We're together, and our sex life is amazing, and our connection is amazing because you came to University of Maryland when we were freshmen. Thank you so much. We got out at the same stop, and we ended up, going and have a glass of wine together, and they were telling me all about their life. So it's possible.
Yeah.
It's possible to do, even though there was a lot of resistance. I remember I was having them, move through the empty space and do all that. And they were laughing and talking. And
you don't talk to move through the empty space.
they were like, who is this woman? But I kept going with them. And that one evening changed them. And that was only 2 hours.
Yeah. I spent a whole day with you.
You did.
My life has completely changed. I'm not kidding. I'm so different. I had to take the entire Sunday off because I had just so much.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Connection. This is the last thing.
Okay.
Connection. In my observation, women need connection to have sex.
You know the Billy Crystal quote. Come on.
And
women need a reason, and men just need a place.
Well, it's men. Yeah, okay. But women need connection to have sex, and men need sex to connect. And I've experienced this over and over and over again, and even communicating that to my partner or partners in the past. Women just don't get it. They're just like, wow, it doesn't make sense. That connection doesn't happen first and then sex. And for men, we just don't understand. We have, like, men are different, right?
They are different. They're wired completely differently.
Completely different. So, but we do want to connect. So ladies, what I would want to say to you right now is that although men need sex to connect, we want to connect. It's just we don't do it the same way you do. And we want to know how to do that. So whatever it is that we need to do to connect prior to having sex, we want to provide that.
So I can speak to that.
Go for it.
So women express love through their breasts, that's where the heart is. And that's for them the place where their love comes through. Their love comes shining through. Of course, it can come through their eyes. It can come through their hands. But really the main chakra, the main body area where women's love is expressed is at the chest.
Right.
Their breasts and their heart. Men, their area of expressing love is at their penis, at the second chakra, their sex area. That's where men express love. There's a meridian point on a man's penis, almost near the tip, that's where his heart connection is connected to his heart. So men express love through their member, if you will, and women make men wrong for that, because women feel used often, or women have felt abused often, and those men aren't connected to their heart necessarily. But men who can connect to their heart still express love through their penis, and women can't make them wrong for that. They have to give that up, and they have to get it, that they will connect, just exactly what you're saying, by opening to that and giving opening to that and giving honoring to that and cherishing to that and nourishment to that. And then the men will connect. They'll open just the same way a woman will open. They'll blossom into their own beauty.
It's beautiful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
This has been great.
Thank you.
Thank you for being on the podcast.
My pleasure.
Laurie Handlers, ladies and gentlemen, author, sex goddess, all of it. It's been my pleasure to really just be able to just share this time with you and talk with you about all the things that interest me and all the things that interest you.
Thank
and
you.
There's so much more. Really, you need to go to butterflyworkshops.com. Make sure that you go there. Take a look at all the offerings that she has. And there is just a wealth of knowledge at the website. So please go there. Also, you'll find Laurie Handlers on Facebook and all the other social media. And you can start with, Butterfly Workshops on Facebook page, and also Sex and Happiness. So find her on Facebook. Once again, for the Edge Podcast, for Laurie Handlers, I'm Mike G. We'll talk to you next time.
Decoding visionaries and subcultures. The Edge Podcast with Mike G is brought to you by the following sponsors. Thank you for your support.
Cut my life into pieces. This is my last resort. Cause I'm the type of nigga that's built to last. If you fuck with me, I put my foot in your ass. See, I don't give a fuck cause I keep belling. Yo, what the fuck are they yelling?
Don't push me cause I'm close to the edge. I'm trying not